Musical Talk, the independent musical theatre podcast at the Edinburgh Fringe. Hello and welcome to another edition of Musical Talk. I'm Thos. Who are you going to be? Well, this is the last of my sequence of episodes about the Edinburgh Fringe 2012. I hope that's not you cheering in the background, and I'm sure you're thinking, well, goodness me, what more can there be said about the musicals at this year's Fringe? Well, the answer is a very great deal, because today's theme is The Ones That Got Away. I'm back at the microphone. Well, it's called The Ones That Got Away because even though you will have heard in previous episodes there seemed to be less musical theatre on this year, although I must say I think the quality on the whole was probably better, which suggests to me that it was some of the perhaps last minute less professional shows. I don't mean that in a pejorative sense, but those shows who might not have a budget that were unable to make it up to Edinburgh this year. But there were fewer musical shows, but the quality was a lot better. But even then, there were far too many for me to see. But my not being able to see them doesn't mean that they shouldn't have a fair crack of the whip. And today you're going to hear a large number of interviews about shows which I couldn't get to see, about shows I don't know a great deal. And hopefully these interviews will illuminate for you, as they did for me, what these new productions are. And they are mostly, in fact I think all, new shows, new writing. And that's one of the great things about Edinburgh. It's just chock-a-block full of new writing. However, the Edinburgh Fringe did end over a month ago now, so just to show that I'm not completely living in the past, let me tell you before we get on to the meat of today's programme about a few other things which are occurring now that you might be interested in seeing. One of which is very, very exciting. It's Tick, Tick, Boom. An exclamation mark goes on the end of that, as you can imagine. Now, you may or may not have heard of this, but this is the, I'm sad to say, other, because he didn't write that many, musical by Jonathan Larson, best known for creating Rent. And it's on in London between the 1st and the 6th of October 2012. Well, what's it about? Well, here's the blurb of the website. It's a musical look at the courage it takes to follow your dreams. Tick, Tick, Boom is Jonathan Larson's autobiographical tale of a young composer on the brink of turning 30, oh, what horror, and falling into oblivion. His girlfriend wants to get married and move out of a city. His best friend is trying to make big bucks on Madison Avenue. Yet John is still waiting on tables and trying to write the great American musical. It contains 14 songs, 10 characters, 3 actors and a band. Tick, Tick, Boom takes you on the playwright and composer's journey that led to the Broadway show Rent. Well, that's the blurb. It's being put on by Completely Productions, and it's on every night between the 1st and the 6th of October at 7:30, and there's also a matinee on that last date at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and if you want to go and see it, you can. It's at the Africa Centre, not a well-known venue, but you can find that in London's Covent Garden. It's at 38 King Street. I actually had a very good meal in there a few years ago. The website www.completelyproductions.co.uk, and you can buy tickets at ticketweb.co.uk or 08444 771 000. And if you want to find out more about the Africa Centre, you can do that at www.africacentre.org.uk. And remember, centre is C-E-N-T-R-E, using that French stroke British spelling that we like to use here in Britain. That's a very exciting thing. I've never had a chance to see Tick, Tick, Boom, so I'm going to see if I can go and see it. I'm rather looking forward to the opportunity of seeing something else by Jonathan Larson. And of course this is the famous show where there is an homage to a Sondheim song from Sunday in the Park with George. Go along and see if you can spot it. It's fairly easy. But that's not all. Slightly perhaps off the beaten track of musical theatre, but it falls squarely within our remit of also looking at cabaret on occasions. May I direct you please towards Lauderdale House, who are doing a series of jazz concerts called Jazz in the House. And you can find out about those at www.lauderdalehouse.co.uk. From the 4th of October until the end of the year, they are having people such as Esther Bennett, Pete Churchill, the Simon Allen Quintet, and shows such as Mark Lockhart's Ellington, looking at Duke Ellington of course, and Sarah Moore's Femmes Fatales, which sounds rather splendid. These are all jazz shows, but they are very squarely in the world of cabaret. Pop along to Lauderdale House. And finally, for those in London or those prepared to travel, there's also Footloose, which you can see between the 26th and the 29th of September, i.e. this week, which is directed by our old friend Matthew Eberhardt. You may remember me interviewing him on several occasions in the past, not least for the show that he took up to Edinburgh, Baby. The blurb for Footloose is that it centres on city boy Ren, who moves with his family to a small town in Middle America where rock music and dancing are outlawed for religious reasons. Sparks fly when Ren and the minister's teenage daughter rebel. You've probably seen the film. This is the musical. If you fancy seeing it, it's at the Putney Arts Theatre in Ravenna Road, which is Southwest 16 6AW. Telephone 020 8788 6943 for details. Or better yet, go to www.cygnetplayers.com. And there you have it, just a selection of some of the things you can see in London, if you're so minded, and you ought to be if you're listening to this programme. Musical talk. But back to our review of the Fringe and those shows which I couldn't get to see. And as I said, for the most part today, we're going to be talking about new shows. So what better way than hearing a song or two from another new show which we've already discussed over the last few weeks, which is Armada. Good news on that. There's a very strong chance it might be developed and brought back to the Fringe next year, perhaps in a fuller version, i.e. the proper full 2-act version. I'm hoping that's going to be the case, because you may remember that David Kingsmill and myself were very taken with Armada. We think it has great potential and the score is fabulous. And indeed, Rob Winlow, the marvellous man behind the show, has allowed us to play a couple more songs. So in today's episode, you'll be hearing 2 more songs from that new show, Armada, and I hope that they will whet your appetite for seeing that show next year at the Fringe. So, let's get the ball rolling, or in the case of the Armada, the cannonball rolling. You're first going to hear a song from Armada, and then I'm going to go straight into an interview with Stephen Arden, one of the actors in the very splendid Clinton the Musical. I don't think I'll need to tell you too much about what's going on there. And please note that the following conversation does contain some explicit language.
Once in a while, there's a look or a smile that speaks 1,000 volumes. If it ever occurs, not in so many words, she's saying yes. I'd like to know you. If the script seems all wrong, you can't get along. What can I say? Don't be dismayed. It's only worthwhile when you see the right smile. Every once in a while. Once in a while, searching mile after mile, you finally meet the perfect person. Things are going so well, no call for heaven to help. This time is it your one assertion? Then someday may arrive, you're no longer alive, and your place by the door. It's no joke anymore. Life can feel like a trial. There are so many miles between once in a while and all at once. The sun stopped hiding. Wonder where love comes once in a
Musical Talk, the independent musical theatre podcast at the Edinburgh Fringe.
My name is Stephen Arden. I am part of Clinton the musical, and I play the part of W.J. Clinton.
Now, you made that very plain, which Clinton, because
Yes.
there's more than one, isn't there?
Yes, we
As
have.
he said himself, I think.
Indeed, yes. Bill spoke about in his autobiography, and I believe in a lot of his interviews, that he feels there's always two sides to himself. There's his public side, the side that always wants to do good and be presidential, for want of a better term, and there's the side of him that's, you know, the private man and his dark side, if you like.
To which light was thrown.
Indeed, much to his dismay, unfortunately. Yeah, so I play the lighter side of Bill Clinton, the sort of the presidential side, the
Public face.
the public face, if you like, yeah. And we also have another actor, John McLarnon, who plays his darker side. He, the sort of the childish, the younger man in him.
The driven man in a different way.
Driven, but in a very different way. But I think the way that we portray it is that the two have to work very much as one, even though if the other, perhaps sometimes one half of the partnership doesn't wish to acknowledge the other side. I think that's part of Bill Clinton's problem, maybe, or that was part of his issue, was that he didn't acknowledge there was another side to him and didn't allow the two to merge. He always kept them separate, and that's when I think difficulties arose for him.
Well, I'd like to explore that a little bit in a minute, but let's talk nuts and bolts to begin with.
Right.
Clinton the musical. How did that idea happen?
I believe the writer Paul Hodge, who's written the music, and Michael Hodge's brother. Paul was a classmate of mine at the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland, and I believe the idea germinated from, he went to see a play about, it might have been John Major or Tony Blair, but it was definitely a politician. I can't remember the title. It was definitely a politician. He just felt it didn't work. It wasn't a good idea.
Was it a musical?
It was.
Because there was one year there were 3 Tony Blair musicals.
It
was Tony the Blair musical, Tony Blair the musical, and then a totally different Tony Blair musical that didn't come to the Fringe.
I'm not sure which one he saw. I'm sure he saw it in Australia. Actually, it was out there. Because he has the writers are Australian, and he saw the production and it didn't work. And I think it was a family friend was like, someone should write the only person you could ever really write a musical about would be Bill Clinton. No one's really interested enough in other people. And he was like, that is a great idea. And I think it just sort of grew from there.
Interesting how pub ideas can snowball sometimes.
Exactly, yeah. And he thought, actually, it is a great topic for a musical, because you do have the serious side to it. It's a man with heart. And of course, you know, there's the one huge issue that everyone seems to focus on.
What, his foreign policy in the Bosnians?
Yeah. But it's interesting how that, it does work well as a musical, and people sort of seem to think, you take Clinton the musical, the first thing they ask, do you have a Monica? That's the first thing they ask. And we do. We do have a Monica.
The clever answer to that is no, but we have a harmonica.
A harmonica.
Sorry. So tell me, when did you sort of come on board?
I came on board, originally Paul asked me to do the workshop. We was taking it for a reading in London, and I wasn't available for that, unfortunately. But I knew of its existence sort of maybe 2 years ago. Paul's been writing it for quite some time. I believe 2-3 years they've been working on the script and the score. And when was it? June, July time. I got a phone call and he said it was going to go to the Fringe. Was I available? Would I like to be involved?
Is that June, July this year?
This year, yeah.
Oh, that's quite tight.
He had it written. He had the piece written, but and he'd taken it for readings and stuff. So I knew it was about. I just didn't know where it was going. And then he asked me if I would be involved, and I was like, I'd be delighted to.
So I'm going to ask you, when someone says, would you like to play one of the most important men in the world? And you said yes, clearly.
Yes.
How does one prepare oneself to play Bill Clinton? And you know, I'm not going to say do you an impression, but how much of him do you channel?
Because I play the one side of Bill, because I'm playing the public, the presidential figure, I think it's, and the whole piece is satire. It's not taken seriously. I feel that it was easy to almost typically embody the sort of your staple presidential moves, your gestures. I think
which you're doing now. I'm to say yes. It's
which
all
is
in the hands.
The hands and the very much the eye contact and the charm. Bill Clinton had a lot of charm about him, and I think that's why people liked him so much, because he was still one of America's favourite presidents. And then obviously I researched him, and I watched a lot of YouTube and a lot of his mannerisms and the way he spoke, and I read his autobiography and to find out, you know, a lot more about him.
Did.
Yeah, and it's interesting.
You had a busy July then, didn't you?
I did, yeah. I had a busy July, but it was made for a very interesting read.
And you like him as a person then, having read all that?
From what the side of him that he portrays, again, yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, there'll be arguments to the other side that say no. I think he portrays himself very much as a family man from a small community who didn't know his own father and grew up, and his mother was abused by her step-husband, and he had to deal with that, and sort of just being a young boy from the south that wanted to do good, which obviously worked well for the American public. Loved that.
It came out well, didn't it?
Yeah, it came out well. Yeah, and I think genuinely, at heart, he wants to do good for a lot of people.
Do you attempt the accent?
I do.
How is your drawl?
It's not bad. It's
May we have a little?
You may. My name is William Jefferson Clinton.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, I was born in a little town called Hope, Arkansas. It's
I'm no expert, but it sounds more American than Scots, if I may say.
Yes, it does. Yeah, it does.
You've subsumed yourself into Bill.
Throw myself into it. His accent's quite difficult because he doesn't, in terms of like acting purposes, he doesn't speak very well.
Yes.
He loses a lot of air through his voice, and I believe actually Bill had a lot of problems with his voice when he was on his campaign trail. He lost his voice, and listening to him, I can hear why. And it's like, to sing like that is very difficult, and to act and project to an audience, you can hint towards it, but you can't fully embody it, or you'll have no voice left.
And also, it's not about being an impression per se, is it? It's
exactly.
Presumably the journey and the interrelationship.
I think that's what's important. I mean, we acknowledge the fact. I mean, I grey my hair up and everything else to acknowledge the fact that yes, I'm Bill, but in terms of, you know, like a show like perhaps Jerry Springer the Opera, where you have a man that looks like Jerry Springer, that was a concern of mine. I was like, I'm going to walk out and people are going to be like, there is no way you're Bill Clinton. So
all right then, how the audience has taken you, and indeed the other you.
They've taken it very well. I think they accept it as the split of the two people, and we do make reference to the fact that we realise we're in a show and we're almost channeling the people as actors. So there's a sort of element of, yeah, I know I'm not old enough to be Bill, and yeah, I know I've got spray grey in my hair, and the other characters know they've got work. They know that, and we know it. The audience, you know it now. So can we just move on? We acknowledge that.
Yeah, once it's been touched, then that's the dramatic license of the piece. Presumably.
Completely.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, you'd be a very poor reviewer or member of the public if you said, well, I couldn't believe a word of it because the man was clearly 30 years too young. Because that's nonsense. Why go along? I mean, you know.
Why go along and see it, yeah.
Now, I've got to say this, of course. We're in the heartland of Robert Louis Stevenson.
Indeed.
And, of course, you've been talking about a dichotomy of personality, two representations on stage, so people are clearly going to say, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. Is there any obvious borrowing from that, or is that just purely coincidence?
To be honest, I'm not entirely sure. There are moments of the pair arguing with each other, and it sort of culminates with Bill Clinton actually having the argument with himself, and actually refusing to accept one half of him, for want of a better term, refusing to accept that he is. I suppose there is an element of Jekyll and Hyde to it.
But it's not overt.
It's not overt. I don't think we make.
It's echoes of the concept, rather.
Yeah, echo. Yeah, that's the better term to use. Echoes of the concept rather than actual direct borrowing. I think, because I think a lot of it, the duality of these characters, didn't come out until we actually got up and started acting it. It's when we started to realise and go, well, actually, if we play it a specific way, then we start to develop more of the individual character.
Now that's really interesting to me. Forgive me. This is the nuts and bolts of acting, and of course your profession. So, can you give us a bit of an insight into how that developed for you? You know, when you were playing with the characters in rehearsal and working out where the dynamics were particularly the two Clintons, but also the other characters. You know, where did you think, oh, this will work, this can't work, that wouldn't be true to the character? I mean, I love the collaborative effort in theatre. This sounds particularly interesting because you're doing it with yourself per se.
Yeah, I think it was. Working with John, the other actor who's playing Billy Clinton, it was with a lot of kind of conversations with ourselves and with our director about how it's really difficult to try and pin it down, to say you had to realise I'm not separate to you, we are the same person, and it's sort of that thing when you're the other half of me. That's
two sides of a coin
two sides of a coin, rather than being, you know, sort of, well, I wouldn't do that, would you do that? It's sort of,
So in fact, it was actually finding ways of making your characters converge almost. Then.
Yeah, I would say so. Be that through, there's movement. We sort of set that up through movement choices where we do. There's points where we're working together where we're sort of back to back and we do the same gestures and movement to kind of unify it. But then when the bills are on their own, they're very separate. They have posture-wise, behaviour-wise, and we set it up through use of props as well. W.J. Clinton's very much a fan and a champion of the pen, whereas we've got Billy Clinton on the desk, and he never stands behind the desk. He sits on the desk and lounges around it, doesn't take it too seriously, and he has the prop that he uses. He has the Chinese stress balls, so he's sort of sitting playing with his balls, if you like, the whole thing, and I'm sitting with the pen, and we start
which is mightier than the sword.
Which is mightier than the sword, and we started sort of working our way through it, and it just sort of
gelled.
It sort of gelled, yeah, it did, and honestly, it all happened very organically. There wasn't anything sort of prescriptive about it. No one had any preconceived ideas. It was just what's going to happen here, and it's been a joy to work with the team that we have. I mean, it's been a fantastic cast to work with, and I know that's a sort of general thing to say, but
not everyone does, so it's good to hear it.
It's been an absolute delight and a joy to work with the team we have. It's been a dream, really.
May I talk about the score?
Yes.
Because obviously it's Bill Clinton, the musical,
yes.
And we haven't even touched upon that element yet. So, can you describe the score? Is it sort of modern? Is it country and western? How far has it been tailored? Pastiche musical theatre? I've got one jazz hand waving here to give you.
We do have. There is definitely an element of pastiche about it. We almost sort of fall into that kind of sort of sticky style kind of comedy.
Is it almost vaudevillian then?
Yes, there's an element. There definitely is. We do an element of sort of playing it directly to the audience and that sort of way. But again, then you have pieces with real heart in it. You look at the character of Hillary Clinton and what she had to endure with her husband, and how much for him the public embarrassment of not just the Monica Lewinsky scandal, but the other political things that followed him around, the White Watergate scandal and the Paula Jones affair. How much did Hillary know? How much did she accept? And then we had to make a choice of, how does this affect the women?
Yeah,
in a way,
it's a true story for everyone, isn't it?
Yeah, completely,
and from the heart.
Yeah, and I think that's the one thing that I can say confidently that we have. You do see these characters as satire and everything else, and they're very, very much heightened. But when you see the woman that's just found out her husband has not so much cheated on her, but lied to her, I think that's the heart she portrays, and it's
still a breach of trust.
Still a breach of trust, and I think musically, Paul's done a great job with the score.
Who is your composer?
Paul Hodge.
Oh, you were saying that.
Yeah, Paul Hodge is our composer. And yeah, he's the music sort of. It's not, the music for those sort of scenes isn't really intrusive, I don't think. I think it sort of comes out of something natural. It's really hard to describe the style of it, actually, because I couldn't bracket it in any way. There is a sort of element of contemporary musical theatre to it, but then we do have we actually have a hold-down number at one point as well. We have a heightened, really, really big style hold-down number. We have a washboard and there's spoons and...
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Marky Batsy's Whitewater background, isn't it?
Yeah.
Little Falls or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Splendid. It sounds quite jolly, actually, all in all.
Yeah.
So, and audiences have been positive, and have you had reviews?
We've had good reviews, and we've had, I think, 4 or 5 4-star reviews now.
Oh, jolly good.
Still seeking the elusive 5-star, but... Yeah, we've had plenty of 4-star reviews in from different companies, and a lot of them have commented on how much they've enjoyed the duality of Bill played as two separate entities as a good dramatic device.
It's brilliant. It's such a clever idea.
Yeah, I feel like when the writers chose to do that, I think it's a great idea. I think that it really allows you to explore either side of the character and to realise that this is all what was going on in his head the whole time, or elements of it anyway. I mean, how are you the president? We have a term. Yes, we are the motherfucking president. Sorry for swearing if this is going on.
No, that's fine.
But yeah, that's it. It's like with one half of me, I am the president, but also I am the president. I have to, and I suppose that sort of typifies the relationship.
It's the person of the office and the office.
Yeah. So it's like I am this, and there's obviously the element is like just wants to be like, look at me, I'm king of the world. Which John actually enjoys very much. He enjoys that with a relish, he really does.
There is such a king of the world when you're president of the United States of
There
America.
would have to be, absolutely, yeah.
So, how can people see it?
How can people see it? It is on at 1 p.m. at the Gilded Balloon. That's on Bristol Square, and we're running until the 27th of August.
In fact, it's the most presidential of the buildings in Bristol Square. It's
It's
the really grand one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a really grand one. However, the get-in time and the speed at which we have to do everything isn't very presidential. It's somewhat warm and stressful.
What is your getting to? Is it sort of 10 minutes either way?
15 minutes either way. 15.
Oh, that's positive luxury, man.
I know. to get yourself greyed up, suited up, and stage set.
But you're enjoying it yourself?
I am. I'm absolutely enjoying it. It's been an absolute delight as an actor, just to get to embody someone of that status, and then to enjoy exploring him as a person, and just as an actor getting to play the different styles. There's the different styles of music. You're playing the heart of the man, but then you can also enjoy the kind of comedy moments as well. You get to enjoy that. It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Do you think the show's going to go anywhere? Can it go anywhere? Has it got legs?
I believe it has legs. It's actually a 2-act. It's been written as a two separate acts.
So this is a condensed Edinburgh version?
Yeah, this is very much edited down.
It's only one term rather than two.
Yeah. They've truncated everything down and they've got it into an hour to get the main points of it across, but I do definitely think it's got the meat there to sort of allow it to expand, give it a bit of breathing room and see where else it takes it.
Does it have a website for anyone who's...
Yes, the website is www.clintonthemusical.co.uk, and we're obviously on Twitter at ClintonMusical as well.
And my final question, well, actually 2 final questions.
Yeah.
The first of the final questions,
Uh-huh.
I suppose the penultimate question, is what more for you? Where do you go after this?
After this, I'm not entirely sure. I go back to I teach youngsters musical theatre as well in Glasgow, so
You do?
yeah, I'll be returning to that. Then there's obviously look out for winter work, perhaps pantomime, perhaps a tour again somewhere. We shall see. John, who is our Billy Clinton, is about to start rehearsals for We Will Rock You in London.
Oh, crikey,
so he's finishing this and going straight into that. So he's going to be a very busy man.
From Little Rock to We Will Rock.
Yes. That sounds like the title of a headline. Yeah, so it's back to rehearsing the rep book, getting the songs polished up and on to auditions again.
And my final question on this then is, for you, when it's all done and dusted, the dust has settled, the next president's in, what would you take away from it?
For me, I'll take away the fact that the main thing for me was I got to work with a fantastic cast, a great creative team that I've honestly felt that it's... I'm crap at adjectives, but
your face is telling me everything you need to say, funnily enough. You're very, very expressive.
Yeah,
which is
okay.
obviously a very good thing in an actor.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Positively expressive, by the way.
Thank you. I've had a delight to what has been such an easy rehearsal. Easy, not as uneasy as I've been sitting on my behind, but everything's flowed. It's been great to work with a team that have been working on a great level of performance, of
smoothly creative,
smoothly
rather than
creative.
difficultly creative.
Yeah,
yes.
Smoothly creative. If there's an obstacle, we've worked our way around it. It's not been an issue. And I'll be sad for the team to sort of disband. But until we are reunited, I hope, if the piece has legs and it goes off to somewhere else, something I'd be very much delighted to continue to be associated with.
Marvellous. Well, I wish you every great success here in Edinburgh.
Thank you very
and
much.
Perhaps beyond.
Yes.
And thank you so much for talking to me.
Not
it's
at
been
all.
a delight to hear all about it and to, if I may say, share your enthusiasm.
Thank you very much.
Musical talk. Well, that was Stephen Arden and Clinton the Musical. It was a great pleasure meeting Stephen, and I wish him great success for the future. I hope to meet him again. And another great Scottish talent, and there was a lot on display at the Edinburgh Fringe, as you might expect, Edinburgh being a very significant part of Scotland, was Finn Anderson. Now, Finn Anderson is a name I'm almost definitely certain you're going to hear again. He's an up-and-coming British composer, more specifically an up-and-coming Scottish composer. And I had the pleasure of meeting him to talk about his show, Streets the Musical, which unfortunately was on when I just couldn't see it, so I never got a chance. But here's the next best thing. Let's hear all about it from Finn Anderson. Musical talk.
I am Finn Anderson. I'm a Scottish writer and composer, and I'm also directing. The show I'm working on at the moment is Streets the Musical, and we're playing at Surgeons Hall for the Edinburgh Festival Fringe.
Now, it's actually advertised very strongly as a new Scottish musical.
Yeah,
and
well,
that's something you're very proud of.
It is something I'm proud of, and we are doing it as a Scottish musical, but also I think Streets is a musical that is universal and could be done in London, in New York, anywhere else. You know, it's the issues that are looked at and the characters that are looked at could be from anywhere.
So it's a story that comes from truth, if you like.
Yeah, well, it's a believable story. It's not a true story.
No.
I mean, it's all fictional, but it's based on a.
It's all.
Yeah, it's quite hard hitting. It looks at a lot of themes that young people, particularly we research the Scottish side of it, but it could be anywhere. Gang violence, addiction, street crime, all these things, but also it is really just a musical about the characters and their relationships and about strong characters, and the songs all develop the characters and advance the plot. There's no jazz hands.
Yeah, so it's contextually it's serious.
Yeah.
So tell me, how did it come about? What's its sort of genesis?
Well, I wrote my first kind of full-scale musical when I was 14, 15.
Really?
Yeah, and I started writing this show when I was 16.
I'm going to ask you the rude question then. How old are you?
I'm 19 now.
Splendid. Oh, it's had 3 years.
Yeah, so it's had 3 years. We've been working on it for about a year and a half, and I wrote it over kind of a summer, and we've been adapting it ever since we started. And it came about because I wanted to write something that young people could relate to, and to do with things that young people feel strongly about and that they can relate to, like I said, and something that people who don't like musicals will also enjoy, because I love musical theatre, but I also love theatre and drama, and I think that's a big part of this show.
Oh, right, that's very interesting, because yes, I'm going to say this. I think a lot of people do make a differentiation between what they perceive to be musical theatre and what musical theatre can be, because musical theatre is just a form of theatre, can be everything.
Exactly, yeah. I think a lot of people, have negative connotations with musical theatre, and I think we've really tried and succeeded actually in a lot of places we've gone to change that. I mean, a lot of my friends and the cast's friends who've come going, I'm going to hate it because I hate musicals.
Like musicals.
Yeah, and they've gone away from it going, that is really fresh, it's young, and I understand it, I can relate to it, and also because there's no jazz hands, it's not really a song and dance musical, it's quite physical theatre along with the music. So
now that's interesting.
Yeah.
If you explain a little, because some people are going to say, well, hang on, what do you mean by physical? Because obviously a lot of musicals involve dance. Well, not all. Stephen Sondheim stand up, but what do you
massive
mean by
inspiration
physical?
of mine.
Well, if he's here, I'll introduce you.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I don't think so.
I doubt it.
What do you mean by physical theatre in this context? If you don't mind me asking?
Well, we would not. I mean, you get very full-on physical theatre, which is incredible to watch. There's a really good Scottish company called Thickskin, which I love, who are doing some amazing stuff physical theatre-wise. And it's quite a simplified movement. I mean, a lot of our cast aren't actors; they're musicians or singers, and they're not dancers. So we've found ways to incorporate kind of contemporary movement into the show that advances the story and makes it look interesting in a kind of choreographed way, but that isn't dance.
Natural choreography.
Yeah, exactly.
That's interesting. So you had this idea 3 years ago.
Yes.
And it was essentially to express both yourself, but the context in which you found yourself as a young person.
Yeah, indeed.
That makes it sound very dry, but that seems to be what you're saying. Next steps then, because obviously you having written a couple already, so you knew what you were doing about development.
I think so. And I mean, we've had some brilliant reviews this time. There's been some not so positive, but there's always going to be ups and downs. We've managed to get every star rating from 1 to 5, which is brilliant. Yeah.
Well, that can
so
only
it's
mean
so mixed. I mean, which is great. And I love that it's been mixed, and we've been the best-selling show where we are. So I think we're doing something right. But I have got plans, and I'm writing other things. I've got ideas which I'm really excited about.
Do you have a website?
I have a website for this show. My website for myself is under construction, but you can go on www.streetsthemusical.com and you can contact me via there anyway. But I use Twitter and Facebook a lot for kind of promotion and networking and things.
So you're contactable.
I am contactable.
People
yes.
want to hear your work.
If
they miss you in Edinburgh, they can contact you.
Yeah, definitely.
Hear and see something.
Twitter is really great, I think, because it's a conversation, and everyone can get involved and have their piece. So you can find me it's Finn_Anderson. So, but yeah, I'm heading down to London in September is my plan at the moment. I've applied to a master's at Goldsmiths in composing for musical theatre.
New Cross.
Yeah, so we'll see if I end up going there or not. I'm not quite sure what my plans are, but. I'm looking at London in September, October time, even just for a year to kind of get a feel for it and work a bit. And I've got other ideas for developing new things. We've been working on this show for a year and a half, and I think we need to move on. I'd love to see another company take it on, and I know some people are interested in working with me. But I think from this is the end of the road for us as a company.
But sometimes you have to let a piece stand on its own legs
and
then move on to the next. Because what you don't want to do is be one of these people, and it's sad, you do see it. People who've had a show or a good idea, they never let it go. They just develop and develop and develop, and really all they're doing is rearranging the furniture.
Yeah,
when really they should stop, leave it be, start again with something else.
Exactly. I mean, when we first did the show, it was 2 hours and 40 minutes, and it's now an hour and 15. And for me, I think now it's a lot tighter. But I think for me, I've which is a shame. I think I lost a little bit of the excitement that I had right at the start when it was fresh and new, and I'm still really excited about the show. But I want to stop while I'm still excited about it, rather than let it get stale. And I think the cast agree.
Now, you wrote the music and the lyrics.
Music and lyrics,
So,
yeah, and the book as well. So.
Can you, in one sentence, in one word, describe the tone, and then we'll talk about how you describe your style? What is
the tone of this show?
Yes.
One review said it was the music was very original, but also had hints of Les Mis, Rent, Spring Awakening,
Right.
which is a strange
so
combination.
You wear your influences.
But well, these are all shows I love, but I think it's contemporary music. There's a lot of kind of pop rock, but it's also musical theatre very
you
much.
said you're very much steeped in that tradition as well.
Yeah, well,
so
I love
it's a
musical
fusion
theatre,
almost.
and I also love popular music, and I love combining popular culture with
one
musical
with the other.
theatre. So, yeah, well, I know musical theatre is popular culture, but you know what I mean. I think.
Well, it's not as popular as it might be.
Yeah, no.
Or rather, the element of it which is deemed to be popular, the West End music,
Yeah,
it's all a little bit staid, I think.
Well, I
So,
think a lot of...
you want something punchy.
It's funny as someone who writes musicals, because I don't like... There's a lot of musicals I don't like,
Yeah.
and it's mainly because I love theatre, and I love being emotionally involved with the characters, and I love seeing where the story takes me, and so many musicals seem to be about the songs, and I'd love to go and see a gig
Be the songs
for
only,
about
yeah.
the songs, yeah, and about the song and dance numbers. I think musical theatre, that's why Sondheim's fantastic, because the characters are there, and you know the story's there, and I think that needs to be the basis for any theatre.
You see, I agree with you absolutely, which is why I'm not a great fan of a jukebox, because the jukebox is a way of finding some constructs that fit
Yeah.
your best of hits. Whereas if the story is first and then the songs illustrate the nexus points of the dramatic
Exactly.
development, then you've got something that you can work with and make something of. So I'm really glad you're saying what you're
Yeah,
saying.
I think it happens organically too, though. I think sometimes, you know, you have a song you love and then suddenly it just fits in with what you're writing, which is good. But yeah, the basis needs to be the characters and their story.
So how did you develop your characters in this? I mean, can I ask, would you say the story is an exploration of youth in an urban environment, or does it have a narrative per se?
It is a narrative. It follows, there are 12 in the cast, but it kind of follows 7 main characters. And it's not, you know, one person's story. They all link together, and they all have their own stories and own personalities, and they link together in a kind of web of street crime and gang violence. And that's how they all meet, and that's how they all interact with each other.
More inside story.
Yeah, but it's very much a story. And not just kind of an exploration of things. It's not a set of monologues or a set of songs.
So it's got something that dynamically drives it through as well.
Yes, exactly. And the characters kind of came about just through researching it and working out what I wanted to explore in the show, and so what characters could explore those different aspects of it.
And how are you at speaking in other people's voices, which I think, you know, being the creative behind it, both you've written the book as well. You know, you are the triple threat, which is marvellous. If Goldsmiths don't take you, they'll be foolish. But, you know, you need to be, in your head at least, need to be the actor who knows how each of these characters develop, feel their feelings, understand their way of viewing the world. And that's quite, you know, forgive me, to have that ability to step outside oneself and see the world through other people's eyes, even if they're your imaginary creatures.
It's strange. It's very funny because I also write songs for myself. I also do kind of singer-songwriter stuff, so it's so different. No, I could have my own work. No, I think it's very funny because there's nothing personal with writing. For example, writing a song about a middle-aged woman who's an alcoholic and loves the men, which is one of the songs in the show. You know, I can't relate to that in the slightest. But I have a lot of fun with that because I think you can find ways to get into it, and you have a lot of more fun because it's less personal. Sometimes writing songs is kind of an escape or a release for me personally, and some of the songs obviously come from inspiration from myself. But I think it's very different writing songs that personal and writing songs for characters that are...
Well, let me ask you an embarrassing question.
Yes.
Are any of the characters in this you? Or have they elements of you in them?
I think every character has probably got some element of me in there. I think it's impossible not to, because when you're writing dialogue, you know, often you would write things that you would say. Yeah. Obviously, in the character and in the context, everyone speaks in different ways, but I think... You know, it's my thoughts behind it. So there's always going to be a little bit of...
You're the god in this world, aren't you?
There's always... well, that's a nice way to think of it. But there's always going to be a little bit of yourself, I think, in everything you write. Whether you write poetry or whether you do art, whatever You
so
do.
there is an alcoholic middle-aged woman in you somewhere.
No, there is. Yeah, definitely. There's
tiny bit, a tiny
I think
bit,
there's
yes.
an alcoholic middle-aged woman in
all of
everybody.
us, yes. Splendid. Oh, well, and it's gone down. I mean, obviously you've been playing very well. You've been successful, and although the reviews have been the full range, that's in a way that's good because that means people are engaging with it.
People have
Whether they're
very
engaging
strong
positively or
opinions on this
yeah,
show, which
good.
I like. And the audiences, like I said, we're the best-selling show in Surgeons Hall, and it's a big venue. So, and the audience reaction has always been really strong from the outset, and also particularly the young audience, and that's what I was reaching out for. So I couldn't be happier with how it's gone, and I'd love to. We aren't totally professional cast. I mean, some of us are still in training, some people are still. So I'd love to see a professional company take it on, and see where it would go from there. So I think it does have potential, definitely, as a show.
So last word then, you're looking to the future, you've got other things on the boil, you know what you're hoping to be doing for the next couple of years in London.
Yeah.
What will you take from Streets the Musical with you as you
It's
develop forward?
really just been one huge big experiment, to be absolutely honest. I mean, I've been doing a lot of the promotion for the show myself. I've been directing it and I'm performing in it as well. So it's
you're in it too?
I'm in it too. So
Good Lord,
you
man.
get the experience of all the different aspects of the theatre world, are kind of ingrained now. And I think working with...
You're lying down tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm lying down tomorrow, definitely. I think I'll be lying down the rest of the week. But I think there's so much, I learned so much through doing this show, and I think it's mad so many people have the attitude that they have nothing to learn, and I think, you're always learning, and I know I have so much to learn, and I know that I didn't go into this thinking, I've got a great show and I'm going to show the world. I went into it going, right, I'm just going to learn as I go and see what happens, and it's gone really well. So
Fantastic. That dispassionate approach is very good. That ability to understand that everyone has limits, including ourselves, but that one can stretch them.
yeah.
I like that.
And also I think one thing I've really taken from doing it from the different points of view, I really understand now if I'm writing for actors, because I've performed in it, because I've directed, I think it gives your writing more strength, I think.
Yes, because yes, you can look at everything from a logistic point of view. You won't now be writing anything that's impossible to run, I suppose. Yes.
Exactly.
Well, Finn, I wish you huge success.
Thank you so much.
In a sense, I have a feeling that's not necessary, because I think you're going to go to huge success whether or not I wish it. Because, forgive me, because that's been a fascinating conversation. It's been fabulous that you've done what you've done, and you've done it from all angles. I'm impressed by that.
I think if no one else is going to do your work, do it yourself.
Yes.
That's my message for anyone who's written a musical. Just do it.
Well, you've got to self-produce at the beginning
Yeah.
anyway. I mean, to be honest, until you've proven yourself, as it were, to other people, and people aren't going to take a risk. But if you are, then it's only by taking those risks you'll go somewhere. So I'm predicting for you a great future. Now, don't let me down.
No pressure
yes,
then.
Finn, thank you very much indeed. I look
Oh, yeah.
forward to speaking to you again.
Thank you very much.
Musical talk. Well, that's Finn Anderson, and I think he's going to be a talent to keep an eye on. And with luck, if he's made it to Goldsmiths this year, as he intended to do, maybe we'll start seeing new shows from him very soon. Here's hoping. Next, I caught up with an old friend of mine, actually. His name's David Dallaire, and if you've got a long memory and an equally long nose, you may remember that I interviewed him last year, because he's part of a London Gay Men's Chorus, and they bring a show up every year. This year it was Heidi Homo. You'll appreciate perhaps not a very sophisticated show, but really a framework onto which you can hang lots of excellent songs, excellently sung. But David is nothing if not a pleasure seeker in the world of musical theatre, and he and I had a nice chat about Heidi Homo and several other shows that he'd seen up in Edinburgh, some of which we've discussed here on Musical Talk in the last few weeks, some of which not. I hope you enjoy this conversation with David Dallaire. And please note that the following conversation does contain some explicit language. Musical talk.
The show is called Heidi Homo, and it is the London Gay Men's Chorus Ensemble, being done by the London Gay Men's Chorus Ensemble, and I'm the director.
And you are?
David Dallaire.
Yes, that's possibly used for the history books. People will need to know. Posterity.
Yes, exactly.
Now, tell me about Heidi Homo, because the London Gay Man's Chorus has now got a great reputation up in the Fringe and does a show every year. Seems to have formed a little bit of a formula. I don't mean that in a negative way, but it comes up with a way of showcasing itself and an interesting range of songs by generating a jukebox musical. Is that pretty much fair?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Heidi Homo obviously sounds like a holiday camp. Tell us more.
Yes. Well, it is set in a holiday camp, and in the usual way that they sort of do a lot of, gay humor kind of gags, a lot of puns, that sort of thing. They kind of take it over the top. It's
so not a serious expose of the world of self-catering holidays.
No, not at all. And it's so basically it's this sort of, there's this tyrant character who kind of runs the camp and who's trying to basically, come out on top, and so he kind of tries to trample down everyone else along the way, and there's a couple of characters who kind of have had enough and kind of stand up to him and that sort of thing. So there's a couple of twists in the plot and that sort of thing that kind of bring it all to a head, and then mayhem ensues. Yes. And then it all kind of comes, everybody's happy in the end. But it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it's just really, really silly, but the audiences really love it, and that's why they keep this formula going, because the people come back every year. Coincidentally, I'm there watching it every night, and 2 nights in a row I sat next to people who, one guy had been every year to see everything they've done, and on the other side of me the other night there was a straight couple who've come every year as well.
Well, the quality of the singing is, although it's the Gay Man's Chorus, let's be honest here, and it's got quite a lot of gay humour, it is actually about quality singing and a great sense of humour, isn't it? Yeah. So it's something for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the singing is incredible.
You can breed and still enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. There's a tiny smidgen of audience involvement as well.
A smidgen. So give us some of the songs.
What have we got? We've got some of the Smiths in there. We've got some Please, Please, Please. What else do we have? We've got...
Is there a version of Mr. Sandman?
There is a version of Mr. Sandman, the title song.
The Smiths from Mr. Sandman. Now that's a jump, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's it.
Big time.
There's a good range going on
here. There's some musical theatre as well. There's the song "Show Off" from the Drowsy Chaperone, which we were talking about, is also in there. What else have we got? We've got some. There's a couple of songs the lyrics have been rewritten for. So there's "The King of the Singers," which is normally King of the Swingers from the Jungle Book. So that's been rewritten as King of the Singers, which actually seems to be the most popular number in the show. Actually,
oh really? It's a song that everyone knows from their childhood, though, isn't it? So it's infused with the glow of nostalgia.
Yeah, exactly. And when they first sort of gave me the script and I read it, and I was like, oh, from the Jungle Book, really? That's going to be a bit weird. But actually, it works really well. And there's a song called "All Girl Band," which is from a musical as well.
Do you know
what musical it's from? Actually, I'm not sure. But it is sort of, it's quite funny that they're singing that they've joined an all-girl band and it's a bunch of men. And I actually have some of them playing instruments on the stage and stuff, which is actually kind of fun.
Oh, actor musicians now, is it?
Yeah. No, we're reaching the dizzying heights of, Sondheim with everyone playing the actual instruments of the show. But
tell us a little bit about how, because you musically direct, don't you? You help people along. Do you get involved in the orchestrations and the arrangements? You must be.
Not at all. Oh. No. I'm just the stage director for this group. They've got Simon Sharp as their music director.
Because I've now heard some of their stuff. I went to a free musicals cabaret at the Sea venue, and they put on 3 songs. They weren't all from Heidi Homo, but it was the group. Resplendent, if I may say, in shocking pink tops and blue trousers. They'd obviously all been told to wear the same top, but they'd obviously all been told just to wear some kind of blue trousers. So there was every array of trouser available, from shorts to capri pants to a pair of workman's jeans.
Oh, yeah, perfect.
So good, all ranges there. And it's nice to be described as a pink top and a blue bottom, isn't it? So,
no, yeah, exactly.
But the songs they sang there, including the Shoop Shoop song.
Yeah.
The orchestration, I must tell you, I'm not necessarily a fan of sort of a cappella singing particularly.
Yeah.
But I was very, very impressed by the originality and just joyous bounce given to each of the numbers that they perform.
Yeah.
It seems to be a vibrant show.
Yeah, the guys are really committed to it. They do it because they love it, and I mean you can really tell they're so committed to the music. I'm just super impressed with them in terms of the amount of the commitment they put in like on the mile throughout the week. They're handing out flyers, and every time there's a slot for you on a stage, they're up there singing. They take it as soon as they can, and it's just crazy how committed they are to it.
Do you actually find this a difficulty directing them? Because some people say you have to, you enthuse your cast and bring them up. Are you in the enviable position of being the other way around, where you actually bring them down a bit to stop them going off too far into the stratosphere, or is it just a case of channeling the energy? I mean,
no, they are incredibly open to whatever they say, almost to a point where you kind of want to say, give me more suggestions, because they kind of just say, do everything I tell them to do. If I told them to stand on their heads and eat a banana, they would.
They really do absorb.
Yeah, they're really, really open to suggestions, right? And yeah.
You must form them into an army and take over the world.
Yeah.
Happy singing.
Our next year's plan.
But how's it been going down? You say the audience are obviously very buoyant, and you do have this good reputation. How many years?
Yeah. This is their fifth year. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the fifth year. And we've had, last night we had 124. The theatre seats just over 200. Yeah. So that's not bad.
It's not.
The previous 3 nights we almost sold it. Well, one night we did definitely sell out, and the other 2 were like maybe 10 off of selling out.
So you're pretty much there.
Yeah.
That's very impressive, because things aren't. Do you have a sense that the world of musicals is shrinking at the Fringe at the moment? Certainly this year.
You know what? It's funny you say that, because I have the Edinburgh Fringe app on my phone, and I was flipping through the operas and musicals section yesterday. I think I found 2 operas.
Yeah.
And the rest, and there really weren't that many musicals out there.
It's very much less than it has been in the last few years.
Interesting.
And I don't know if it's due to the economic situation, or whether people are just not prepared to come up to the Fringe for the because of the Olympics. We know that there was a bit of it's much quieter at the beginning of the Fringe this year because it's been attributed to the Olympics, but presumably that also means there may be fewer presenters, fewer performers.
Interesting.
If you're being asked to commit to 2 weeks in August, they might say, well, no, I want to watch the the turtle polishing and the fray chucking and all the other Olympic sports that we do in Britain.
It could also be that a lot of people, because this happened with some of the musicals. I know this happened with some of the musicals in London, because some of the companies were really desperate to find people to be in shows. Is that a lot of performers were in the ceremonies, so either the opening or closing of the ceremonies, which means that they couldn't commit to doing a show in August because they were going to be doing those performances.
And there were hundreds and hundreds of people in the opening performances.
There were 5,000 in the opening.
There was one person in the opening ceremony who was really beyond compare, actually. I think he stood out from everyone else. His name's David Blair. I gather you were in the opening ceremony of the Olympics.
Yes, I was. I was in the Industrial Revolution bit, and it was a massive time commitment. And obviously I'd committed to directing the show, so but I had to work that around,
handle at both ends, I think.
Yeah, and I was really lucky that I was able to kind of work it around the schedule for the Olympics as well, because it was a huge time commitment.
And all in
10-hour days.
So much of it as well.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Although quite a lot of it got leaked before we actually did it, but we did our best to try and keep the big secrets.
Well, a success. I didn't know anything about it, so
brilliant. That's good.
I put it all down to you and Danny Boyle, frankly. I want to see United in the New Year's honours list. So back to Edinburgh. So it's going down really well, and the reviews have presumably been extremely positive, haven't they?
Yeah, we've had two proper reviews, and we were someone put us on their blog.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, but all 3 were positive. We got some really nice stuff about the harmonies. Somebody said the staging was nicely controlled, which is a nice compliment, I think. We've had some really good feedback. Yeah,
well, you look far from scrappy in the cabaret, if I may say. It's a group that knows how to work with itself as well, if I may say. You could see that they were enjoying themselves and knew where they worked with each other.
Yeah.
It was actually quite a privilege to watch them, to be honest.
Oh,
they were also great fun in the audience because it was a cabaret of other musicals as well.
Yes.
And they seemed to be enjoying themselves very loudly.
I think they do enjoy themselves very loudly.
Yes. But David, that's not the only musical you've seen up here in Edinburgh, is it? You've managed to get several. So tell me about one or two that you've seen, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course. I saw one yesterday called The Picture House, which apparently I went with Simon Sharp, who's the music director for the LGMC, and he works at a school called Tring in London. So he knew a few of the students that were in it, and some of them had gone on to do sort of.
So how long is a piece from Tring? You're very kind. That's a lot more laughter than that deserves.
Some of those singers had gone on to do a Mount View postgrad thing. So apparently all of the people involved were involved with Mount View in some way.
Which is one of our premier musical theatre training schools for actors.
Yes, exactly. And I didn't know that until after it was finished. So watching it, I was really curious to find out where they were all from, because they were really good, really very, very good. It's set in it's a World War II sort of outbreak type thing, where a couple buy a picture house and then the war breaks out, and then they, all the men get sort of called away, and then people are trying to sort of steal the picture house from her, and it's really, really well done. The singing is lovely. The singers are really good, and the music is nicely arranged, very simple. There's a violin, a piano, and a little drum kit. It was just
new
really
score, old songs.
New score.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah, new score. And I wasn't sure what to expect at all, but the songs were really sweet. Some of them were really quite touching and sung very well, acted very well. There was one woman who sort of played an older woman whose son. I won't give it away, but she was brilliant. There were a couple of them in there that were really, really great.
Well, anything set in the Second World War, particularly in this country, has a sort of a strong emotional punch, even to this day.
Yeah.
Because we've all got relatives who were in it.
Exactly.
My own grandfather was an ARP warden. So,
my grandparents met during the war. So.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, my grandmother was a munition, worked in a munitions factory, and my grandfather was a Canadian soldier, and they met.
She blew him away.
Yeah.
In the nicest possible way.
Just keep coming, yeah.
Is that what he said? That's rude, I'm sorry.
I know. I'm like, So then they emigrated to Canada, and that's how I.
That's
came
why
to
you're
be.
here.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And then here through an ancestry visa through her as well. So, yeah.
Oh well, I'm jolly glad that all happened.
Yeah, me too.
So the Picture House, touching by the sound of it.
Yes.
And,
yeah, very touching. Yeah, I would recommend it definitely.
Well,
it's the best thing I've seen actually. So.
Oh, is it now?
Yeah.
And it's new writing, of course, isn't it?
Yeah.
You also, I think, saw The Drowsy Chaperone.
I did indeed last night. Yeah. Lots of fun.
Had you seen it before? Is it a piece you knew?
Hadn't. I know Show Off because it's actually in our show.
You said, yeah.
Yeah, it's in our show.
And it's a real tour de force for the actress involved, isn't it?
Yes.
Or actor, depending on the performance.
Exactly. Although ours has a bit of a twist. We don't. In the show, she's meant to actually be quite good, and she shows off. Whereas in our show, she's actually meant to be like quite crap, which kind of adds a nice
version.
Especially adds a nice element to it. But it was really well done. The singing was great. The singing was really tight. The chorus singing actually as well, they were really good, and both in that and in the Picture House, I have to say. All the cutoffs at the same time. No reaching for note. It was, they weren't flat. It was
wavering.
Really yeah, exactly. No cringing. It was brilliant. It was a really fun night. The only thing I would say is that I felt like it was underplayed a tiny bit. The show itself is very.
It's quite full on. It's not a serious piece.
Not at all. And I think because it is absolutely ridiculous, you've got to kind of take it up that way. You've got to take it that way, because then otherwise it just falls a little bit flat. So I think they could have taken it up a tiny bit more. But I really enjoyed it. There were a couple of characters that were just that were really stood out. The woman who played the chaperone has this weird face, and that at first really annoyed me. I was like, why is she making that face? But then actually every time she came on, I sort of chuckled to myself, and it worked in the end. So
repeat until funny, almost.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you think of it as a piece? Because I think it's a curious oddity, isn't it? It's basically a lonely man listening to his record collection.
Yeah.
It's essentially the narrative drive.
Yeah,
as an escape from depression.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly. And I didn't know the show, so I didn't know what to expect from him. I actually found his character to be quite sad.
Yeah.
I was.
In fact, he's the emotional heart of the piece, isn't it? Because none of the performances.
No. God, no. Oh, absolutely not. What's his name? He says his entire song. He says his name about 57 times. The sort of foreign guy, the Italian guy, whatever his name is. I can't remember, but he no one is really serious. But then he sort of has these little sort of really quite depressing monologues off to the side, especially quite near to the end. So as a piece, in that sense, it was I liked it in that sense, in the fact that it wasn't just a sort of fluffy musical. It was someone who has this emotional core talking about a fluffy musical. And how, the fluffy musical kind of takes him to a place that, makes him feel a little bit better. Or does it? I guess that's the question.
Would you say the score is memorable? Because I went to see it in London when Elaine Page, EP, was in it. And it was professionally done. I've got no criticism of the production.
Yeah.
But I didn't really... I came out whistling George Gershwin songs. So what it did, it successfully evoked the 1920s.
Yes.
But the 1920s it evoked was the real 1920s rather than the ersatz one that it was offering.
Not the fake one.
And then I went to see Lady Be Good the same week at the Open Air Theatre in Regent's Park. I remember this now. And that was a genuine bona fide, gold star 20s musical.
Yes.
It was better.
Yeah.
And there was, and it didn't have any kind of serious heart to it. There was no man being depressed in the corner. That was just a fluffy musical.
Yes.
Actually, why not?
Yeah.
So I value your view on that.
Interesting.
Did anything really strike you from the score? Is it
the only one I know, and it's only because I know the song, is Show Off, and because we're doing it in our show. But actually, I don't know if I could sing you anything else from it. So
I think that's its problem, and it's competent, but it hasn't quite reached any heights of genius, I think.
No, I think you're right, actually. Yeah. No, I couldn't say that I can remember any of the other songs from it.
I'm seeing it tonight, you see, so...
Yes, yeah. No, I'd be curious to see what you think, actually. Yeah, I'd be really curious to see what you think. But I did enjoy it. It was a fun evening, and some of the actors were great, actually. They were really good. One thing that kind of bothered me a little bit, and this is just me being a director, is that at one point in the show, one of the main sort of love interest man has to put on a pair of roller skates, and they were like 1987.
Oh, they were roller disco blades, were they?
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, 1920s roller skates are going to be hard to source. But I was.
You say that, but when I was given roller skates as a little boy in the 1970s, I had no doubt they were exactly the same as the 1920s, because they were called Jacko skates in this country, and they came with a key, and all they were was a metal plate strapped onto your foot with buckles.
A metal
wheels.
Plate with buckles. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, and that's what I was,
Yeah.
That's what I was wanting to see. But they came out with these, right from now.
Full on Starlight Express.
Yes, that's exactly what they were. Starlight Express. Yeah. So the continuity director in me was like, that doesn't work. But other than that, they could have taken it up a little bit more, but it was really well done. The orchestra was great, really good, very tight. Yeah.
What about other musicals?
Other musicals. What have I seen? I haven't seen any other musicals, but I did see. I went to see The Horrible Histories, Barmy Britain.
That got songs in it.
It does, yeah. They're sort of really bad karaoke backing track kind of songs, and they're only about like a minute long, and something about Henry VIII.
Yeah.
Not using Henry VIII I am probably because they would have some sort of copyright issue or something.
Actually, that was probably our copyright now, because that's a good sort of musical number, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think you went to see a burlesque as well, didn't you?
I did indeed.
Now, tell me about that. But can you describe for our audience, because not everyone... Burlesque is an American thing.
Okay.
And also it seems to have two possible ways of interpretation, but it's I understand. Let me tell you what I understand it to be. In America, you've got the three levels of theatre: legit theatre, vaudeville, which is now the equivalent of our musical, and then there's burlesque, which is the saucy end of that.
Yep.
That's how it's being sold in this country. Although the regeneration that's been occurring over the last few years appears to be mostly female burlesque actors, feathers and aerial displays and singing.
Yeah.
Tell me what you understand burlesque to be, and then tell us about the show that you saw, because it had a twist.
Yeah. Well, I think burlesque tends to get... what I understood it to be is, as you just said, sort of the women with feathers and that sort of thing, and nipple tassels and that whole idea. And I think that the word burlesque itself gets a bit of a sexual connotation. I think people sort of think it's going to be some sort of sex show or something. Yeah. So when the guy said they were going to a all-male burlesque show, I was like, oh God, of course you are. And then I was like, oh, I'll go. I'll check it out. They were doing
Someone's
it as an outing.
Someone's got to chaperone them.
Well, exactly. So I went, and these people are proper gymnasts. I mean, they were absolutely incredible. I mean, there was a compere who was sort of a comedian, who, for all intents and purposes, was like a very talented and funny drag queen, really. But the other gents all had some sort of circus type skill, and proper circus skills. Like one guy does the plate spinning, another guy did a whole aerial ribbon routine, which was really impressive and absolutely terrifying.
Yes,
because you just like were worried he was gonna completely roll down the ribbons and smash on the floor, but he doesn't, because this is his art. There was another aerial guy who did a whole routine on a bar. There was a strong man as well.
It's kind of the Soleil kind of thing.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, with a huge splash of Australian humour, which I have to say I really enjoyed. And Bob Down was in the front row.
Oh, Bob Down, yes, we love him. He's got a sharp hair called Smoking, I think.
Yeah, he didn't have his wig on, but he was in the front row as himself.
You ruined the illusion.
I know. Yeah, exactly. He doesn't actually have that hair. Wow. So of course he was loving it, because it was Australian. They were Australian, and it was Australian type humour.
I'm going to ask the obvious question, and forgive me, this sounds as though I'm sort of labouring the sexual aspect of it.
Yes.
But if so much of burlesque, I understand, particularly in female burlesque, is the tease.
Yes.
There's actually that woman isn't wearing any kind of top or bra. She's hiding herself behind balloons or feathers, and it's all about can you, can't you, will you, won't you see, and it's sort of an exotic, possibly even erotic dance.
Yes.
Gentlemen have less to reveal.
They do.
So how does genuinely, what are the practicalities of doing it for a male gender?
Interesting. It's funny you say that, because after I watched it, I mean, there were some bits that felt a little bit gratuitous. I mean, I'm not going to lie; they were all quite attractive, fit men, for the most part, they were all wearing like jock straps and things.
Thongs.
Exactly.
A thong for Europe, yes.
Exactly. So it was really, really well. It was they still do this sort of reveal, but they do it in quite a sort of subtle way. I mean, actually, there was one moment that was not subtle at all, and one of them was actually full on naked on the stage.
Not really burlesque, though.
Exactly. But I did say to a couple of the guys after, I said, you know what? Even though they were quite attractive guys and they were wearing sort of very revealing minimal clothing, I said I was really transfixed by their skills and what they were actually doing. I mean, one guy does a whole routine in up in the air in a jockstrap, basically. But I was just so fascinated by what he was actually doing that I wasn't really paying attention.
So the content of the show, in fact, actually is so much more important, as it should be, really.
Yeah.
What it's about is the performances and the skills of these people. The fact that they are attractive or not wearing much is on the side, which is really what burlesque should be about. Actually, the same for female burlesque. In the sense that, they're singing or performing. The rest, the tease is an extra. It's the cherry on your bakewell. But you've got to have a bakewell first.
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. And I think probably they gave me a very good representation of what burlesque is actually about. Because I wouldn't go and now pass on and say to people, "Oh, burlesque is just a big old sex show." Well, it's not actually. It's really, a proper burlesque show is talented circus performers / gymnasts.
Good physical theatre.
Absolutely impressive. Yeah, very impressive. I would say that and the Picture House are the best things I've seen up here so far.
Oh, really? That's very interesting, because they're quite different in tone, aren't they?
Yeah, very different. And I've yet to go and see anything that has no music in it. I've still got 3 or 4 more days to go, so it's in the cards. But recommendations?
Well, I went to see Newland last night, and I was really very impressed.
Okay.
The reviews have been up and down.
Okay.
It's getting lots of stars, as it deserves. Mm-hmm. 1 or 2 of the reviews have been a little bit mealy-mouthed, although it's very clear to me that the reviewers don't know what they're talking about, because there are some factual inaccuracies. But I was very impressed for new writing. I think that was for me the most so far. That's the best piece of new writing I've seen in Edinburgh since I arrived. So that's
it's called Newland.
Newland. It's a musical about. Well, on the face of it, it doesn't sound that appealing. It's about cowboys, and it's about betrayal. A sheriff has to leave his original town and sets up life in a new town. But will he? One of the questions is, will he leave his new stable life with a love interest to go back and save the town from which he originally loved and left.
Oh, interesting.
But it's beautiful because it's got both heart, but it's also got, if I may say, buckets of comedy in it as well. So, you know, it feels like a West End show waiting to happen.
Yeah, yeah.
And that doesn't happen much in the Fringe, so that's very good.
Yeah, yeah.
So much so I'm going to see it again, fun enough, and I don't often do that.
Interesting. What time is it on at?
It's in the evening, it's probably clashes, but it's 8:05, I think. About 8 o'clock, anyway.
Okay.
At the Surgeons' Hall, which is just down the road from C, so it's literally 5 minutes walk from there.
Oh, brilliant. Okay.
I enjoyed that a lot. I saw Active Virgin as well, which is the Scots Academy are doing Company as their big show.
Yes.
But Active Virgin, they like to also do two sort of works in development or other commission new pieces. And this is an absolute romp. It's set in a sort of a futuristic dystopian gymnasium where everybody is so desperate to be perfect physically. But, you know, they're really making themselves miserable, and the whole place is run by this female computer which is designed to help them identify their perfection. But of course, if they fail to meet that perfection, there are consequences.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so this
is it a musical?
Oh yeah, very much so. Yeah,
wow.
It's actually it's jolly good. It's funny. I thought it was going to be serious when I arrived.
Yeah.
I didn't really know what it was going to be about, but it was an absolute hoot. And without saying too much more, there's also, the situation is resolved by a character known as the Doctor. But it's not quite what you think it is.
Oh, interesting.
It plays around with several tropes.
And what time is that one on?
That's 12 o'clock. At noon.
Oh, I could see that.
It's not on every day. You have to find the day it's on, because it alternates with... I think it might be on again tomorrow.
Okay, brilliant.
And that's C as well. Up in the attic, up in C3, which is about 4,000 miles into the air, and there's no oxygen.
That's where we were yesterday, or last year.
Hot, isn't it?
Yeah, they all are. All the C ones are. Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, I wore a vest the second time we went because I just couldn't handle it the first time. Yeah.
I just took oxygen tank, but it was Well, David, thank you very much indeed for sharing your experiences up here in Edinburgh. Again, it's always great fun to hear about it. So tell us one more time about the show and when it's on.
Yep. The show is Heidi Homo. It's the London Gay Men's Chorus Ensemble. It's on at 7:35 at C+1 in the C venues on Chambers Street. Yeah.
And it's professional fun, isn't it?
It is professional fun, yeah. Not sure I'd label it as that, but yeah.
Would you not? How would you label it?
I'd say ridiculous fun.
Oh, right, splendid. All right, yeah. But it's underpinned with a good, solid, yes.
Yes, absolutely.
David, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you, Thomas.
Musical talk. That was David Dallaire there, having a chat with me and having a little romp through some of the shows that he and I had seen. The next interview is really quite bijou, certainly petite, only lasting a few minutes. But let's hear now about the Crab House, described as a bloody cabaret. Musical talk.
My name is Cindy Summers, and I'm a performer in the show. I came over from New York. I'm with a cast of 3 other people from Australia.
And the show's called, by the way?
Crab House, a bloody cabaret.
Splendid. So tell me about it. You say it's an Australian piece originally?
Yes, it was originally called The Wharf, and then we brought it over to New York and renamed it Crab House. Joe Keeley is the musical director and composer. It's the story of Tim and Ruth, a husband and wife who move from Illinois to New York and buy a seafood restaurant in hopes to become successful during the Depression. And
it's historic?
Yes, it's in 1932.
The other Depression.
yes, the other one, not this one. And, freak accident happens. It shows Ruth the way to become successful, and the story tells how far she'll go in which to do so.
And it's been to America?
It has. It was off-Broadway.
And how did it run then?
I actually was not in the cast then, but I hear it was a very successful run. They had 2 venues that they ran, and they were able to bring it here. So,
how would you describe the score?
The score is great original pieces. You've got some beautiful ballads, some great up-tempo, real catchy numbers.
Is it sort of modern, sort of Tisch School, Broadway, would you say?
Broadway, yes. Yes.
But is it... Because that's such a broad encompassing term. Is there pastiche in it, or would you say it's absolutely up to date in its sort of contemporary feel?
I'd say it's a decent mix.
Oh right, jolly.
Yeah, it's a decent mix of both.
And describe the character that you play.
I play Amy, and I am a bright-eyed, young girl looking to become successful myself as a chef in New York. And so I find this restaurant, Crab House, and ask to be hired, and they offer me the position of a waitress. And so my role becomes kind of trying to talk Tim into being less of a wuss and stick up to his wife, who is this overbearing, calls the shots, in any way. Yes, in every way. So.
Oh right. So in a way, it's not a love triangle per se, but there's part of the dynamic between the essential characters, very much so.
Yes. Yeah.
And when did you join the project?
I joined the project June. The end of June, I was cast to come on over to Edinburgh with them. So
June. That's quite.
Yes. Yeah. We put the show together in 3 days, and did a preview in London, and then brought it on over. So luckily.
How's it being received up here in Edinburgh?
It's being received very well. We play to a full audience every day. So
Really?
knock wood, it continues. Yeah.
So which venue are you in? Come on, how can people see this?
We're at Fingers Piano Bar every day except Monday at 2:00.
And where is that? That's not one of the well-known venues.
It's on Frederick Street on the corner of Queen's Road.
Oh, right, so that'd be the New Town, as they call it. Yes, splendid.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, very classy. Oh,
Yes.
very good
Oh,
indeed.
yes. It's a great
Nothing but the
venue.
best.
It's a beautiful venue, so
And
we got lucky.
Is there a website?
There is a website. I believe it's... If you Google Crab House, a Bloody Cabaret, it'll come right up.
Oh, well, thank you. I'll ask one last question then, if I may. When the dust settles on this Edinburgh production of Crab House, what will you take away from it? What will live with you?
With Crab House, I was very fortunate to come to another country and work with such a cohesive and talented cast. It's definitely something that I would strive to do again. It's been an amazing experience, and I've been lucky enough to do it with some amazing people. So
Can't say fairer than that, can you?
anymore. No.
Lovely, thank you very much indeed. Musical talk. Well, there we are. The Crab House. Which reminds me of that age-old question, can you name a crustacean? The answer of which, of course, is charing crustacean. And there endeth the jokes about crabs, at least for the time being. Now, musical theatre is often perceived, quite wrongly, as being a very niche kind of theatre, a very niche kind of drama. That it can only look at light subjects, that it can only be entertaining in that kind of sort of blandly happy, dancey, jazz hands kind of way. Now, of course, there is a place for that, and a lot of people love that. But musical theatre is like all drama. It can tackle everything and anything, and there shouldn't be anything that it can't tackle. In the next interview, we're going to be talking about a new musical based on the riots which occurred in London and elsewhere across, I have to say, England rather than Britain last summer, and the unanswered questions which still surround how that came to be and what might have been the causes. The musical itself was called Riot, the Musical, and I caught up with 3 of the people involved in this new show, and during this interview you'll hear their passion for the importance of drama and theatre. Riot, the Musical. Musical talk.
Matt Leggett, choreographer.
Richard Mayer, performer.
Lauren Tash, performer.
Splendid. Riot the Musical. Now, people are going to say, topical from last year.
Yes.
But what made you think that turning that into a musical, the events of last summer, is the way to go forward?
It was our director / writer, Florence. Just thought that it was such a topical subject matter that everyone knows a lot about already and knows someone who was directly affected or indirectly affected by it. And it was just, I think she had the idea that she just wanted to explore it through physical theatre and music and bring it to the Edinburgh Fringe because it is so raw and new and topical.
And it would catch a lot of people's eye, 100%. It's something that some groups may not necessarily have the guts to do because it's so raw and so fresh, but I think we've taken a massive risk, and I think we've done it in a really out there way, but very tame, as the fact that it's very...
We didn't want it to be so focused on giving our political message kind of thing. It's not about that. It's not about saying this is why the riots happened or it's this person's fault, that person's fault. It's about just rehashing the questions and looking at the different kind of people that were there and that were involved
Now that brings me, I think, onto how does one develop? It's a great idea for an idea, and it's a great idea for a title as well. But then, how do you say, well, what is the narrative drive? What's the dynamic behind this?
We try to distance ourselves from having from making the plot sort of the main aspect of the play. In the same way that our characters, whilst obviously we try to develop them and make them our own, they're more representations of society. And I think one of the decisions which is quite poignant for us is obviously Mark Duggan was the name of the fellow who was shot, and we actually, our director actually opted not to name him in the script, because obviously the thing that's important is that he was a man rather than the fact that he was Mark Duggan.
Yes, he's become a political symbol as well as
of
being
course.
the individual that he was in the first place.
Absolutely.
To keep it that way, so that he was just a symbol. Not necessarily that it's his fault, it's the trigger, but that he is the trigger of it.
Yeah.
But we're not naming him personally.
It was also a bit too soon to name him
Yeah,
and bring
Well,
it
as
in.
family, as friends, aren't
Exactly.
Yeah, of
Exactly.
course. It's still things going on.
But it
Absolutely.
shows that how, four characters from completely different backgrounds all come together because of this, because they all believe in the same thing.
Well, the thing is that the narrative does follow four characters they all have different reasons for being there, they've all come from different backgrounds, and it sort of briefly explores where they are in their life, the moments leading up to the riot, and then why they go there, and very briefly touches on what happens afterwards and what the outcome is of each of them writing.
And forgive me, each of the characters in the piece are actual, I'm going to use, forgive me, newspaper terminology, rioteurs rather than those people who were also...
Yes.
Forgive me,
Yes.
the riots involved everybody in the sense that
of
they
course.
were, I'm using broad terms here, so, once again, not trying to be pejorative, but there were victims and there were people who were rioters in the eyes of the press, but there were also those people who came along to try and stop it, and,
Well, I
they're all
think,
aware of the Samaritans as well. Human life is here.
We've got a very small cast. I mean, there's only actually four of us in the cast. So I think our characters.
Quite a small riot.
Yeah, absolutely.
We go with a big bang.
Yeah, our characters are all, as I was saying, incredibly different. But there is that sense of unity by something that was obviously so destructive. And I think the fact that we have got such a small cast allows us to really define each individual sector of society. For example, you've got the sort of the young, thug, the young sort of ruffian, and then you've got myself, who is the man who's been employed for so long and has suddenly lost his job, and that then has a cause and effect with the family and the house, etc., etc. So I think it's frustrations from four different walks of life allowed to be developed via such a small cast, unified by something so destructive.
So everybody's got sort of different perforations on the paper.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, my character, she's a higher upper class, educated, private school girl who wants to prove that daddy doesn't pay her way in life, and she wants to be something that everyone doesn't expect her to be, so then that sort of leads her into the riots, but then she ends up being left by everyone around her and she doesn't know what to do.
Yes, yes, it's fair weather friends, I suppose.
Yeah,
almost.
but our characters are based on
Yeah.
real people. Like, my character's based on the millionaire's daughter who was giving rides to the looters who got put in prison for it. So that's the sort of character, and each of us have sort of a person to sort of look at, to have a basis on, so everyone can understand who each character is and what part they play.
So it is drawn from truth, even though the individual
absolutely.
stories themselves aren't real ones, but
I
they
mean,
are all...
there are occasions where we use direct quotes from...
verbatim theatre.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
You and the National Theatre doing that.
Yeah. But I mean, obviously, that was merely to retain authenticity. I mean, we, like I said, we have distanced ourselves really from making it about the plot, about the characters, about named people. So I think the quotes were there for authenticity, and to keep it raw, to keep it fresh. But like I said, it's not about sticking to sort of the exact events of what happened. It's more an exploration, really, rather than a narrative.
Exploration, that's such a good term, if you don't mind me saying.
No, of course.
You also mentioned physicality, physical theatre.
Yes.
Obviously, a riot is a physical event in a very real way. It's rather more than just a walk down the road.
Yeah.
So how does this come across in the
Well,
musical?
because it's not the musical isn't heavily based around the music.
No.
It is a play, and then the songs are there to add entertainment or to explore the feelings of the characters a little bit
Illustrate
further.
the nexus point
Yeah.
on the emotional journey, of course.
And it's all very the lyrics in the songs are all very conversational as well. And then to explore there's a section where we explore becoming rioter police and being rioters, and we want to explore it through physical movement and music. And so it all becomes very sort of tribal and punchy and staccato movement. So that instead of actually trying to replicate a riot on stage with four of us, we thought it would be far more effective to show it in a more choreographed way.
In a way, I think you almost have to. The limitations of the cast, and I don't mean limitations, but there's only 4 of you.
Of course.
It means that you have to, a bucket of imagination goes a very long way.
Yeah.
Of course, absolutely.
And especially as we're such a small cast with no stage props,
Yeah.
apart from a bag, we are us.
You went to town then, I see.
Exactly. So we
right.
didn't feel that we needed
No.
to have all the fancy props. You don't need that to make a show. You need
You certainly don't.
You
Black
need the
box theatre
car.
is the way forward anyway.
Yeah.
You're even wearing the black box curtains.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are. This is our
Absolutely.
outfit, and we're not there to perform a show and dance. We're there to send a message, as well as making people feel what other people felt during that time. I mean, it was a year ago last week that it happened, and it's perfect timing, really.
Well, it is. I mean, it's the memorial, isn't it?
Yeah.
Certainly. So it's very fresh. Yeah.
It's a way to make people never forget what actually happened.
But can I ask you a question about the score, if you don't mind me saying? Now, you're saying, obviously, that it's not like a Broadway musical, but then again, things don't have to be like Broadway musicals, thank goodness. A bit of variety is good for everybody. How did the score come to be, and can you describe the music in obviously not precisely, but
It's got a very urban feel to it.
urban, right?
Heavy beach.
It's heavy
Yeah.
beats, some electro sounds going on in there. I mean, the
And who's your composer, if you don't mind?
Florence Odomosi, she wrote
Oh,
it,
right,
she's
okay.
directed
Oh, she
it.
did the whole thing, the
Yeah.
book and the
Oh,
music.
she's
Oh, crikey.
fantastic,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'd say she's having a lie down now.
Yeah, she deserves it.
Yeah, too
She's
right.
worked very hard on it. But yes, like I said, the lyrics are very conversational, just put to a very urban sounding, and the songs don't go on for scores and scores and scores. They're very short and sweet, punchy to the point.
Maximum to about a minute and 20 seconds.
really? They are that-
actual
that-
songs.
Oh, yeah,
They are short,
Very
absolutely,
short.
yeah.
Movement music a lot longer, about 2 minutes, but no longer than that. You don't go
So
4
it's
or 5
almost
minutes.
punctuation,
Yes.
if you don't mind me saying.
We
In
wanted
the
it-
narrative.
yeah.
It's a tap.
Snapshots.
Yes, that's a good way of putting it.
Yes, it's snapshots of there's this character in this situation, there's this character in this situation, and we look at them very, very briefly in a very sort of direct way. We don't sort of flounce around the
Yeah,
point
it's.
and the
I
subject.
think it is extremely to the point. I mean, there is no sort of.
It's not dressage.
No, not far from it. Far from it. There's no. I think it's hard to quite say what I mean, but everything within the text is every single word has purpose. I mean, there are certain. I mean, we've obviously
quite
as a
intense, the
well,
words.
absolutely. I mean, as a cast, we sort of developed, particularly the monologues, to sort of how we wanted. But I mean, there's no wasted sort of dialogue. There's no wasted time. Everything is extraordinarily significant, and of course, the intensity from that is then upped massively.
Well, I mean, you couldn't think of an environment where there is much more intensity happening, because
Of
you've got
course.
people who are angry, people who are
course,
frightened,
yeah.
all manner of human emotion. Isn't
Of course, and I think that's another sort of beauty of it. It's not necessarily something you can just sort of sit there, observe, and walk away from. I mean,
No.
it's certainly
you have
something
to have
that
some kind of visceral
course,
reaction to it,
absolutely,
and almost an instinctual one rather than an intellectual one.
yeah,
Certainly in
no,
the first
definitely,
instance, yes.
definitely. I mean, it's not. Even the main intention is not to get people to understand. We have no agenda, of course. It's just this exploration idea and getting people to think and getting people to talk about it, rather than saying this is what happened, this is why it happened. It's more think why did it happen. So getting people to question rather than to answer, really.
No, I like that very greatly. Because, forgive me, I do read the newspapers, and
Of
the
course.
newspapers do have an agenda.
Yes,
they also
most certainly.
they also have a sense of narrative, which sometimes has to be imposed on reality. And we know, here we are a year on, and still nobody has an answer to that
Exactly,
question. So
yeah.
why should there be an answer? Of course,
Yeah,
the real question.
I mean, no, sorry, go on.
No,
I was
please
just going to say, I think another thing also is that we've made it significantly more accessible than any other sort of outlet, even whether it's reporting, performing, anything. I think it's significantly more accessible, and like you say, all the newspapers do often have quite a serious agenda, and there's none of that here. So.
I've got to ask, how are people reacting to it? How are your audiences? Aren't
Oh,
they?
it's
we have another-
opening day is today.
Opening
Oh,
day.
sorry.
Opening
Oh.
day. Yeah.
How
yeah.
will they be?
But back at
Yeah.
home, we've had interest from Sky Arts News, we were in the Independent, like a lot of news,
Good, they're
and
the one I
people. News and people are the ones that are really interested in how we can bring this musical. And do you know what? Only today will tell on people's reactions, and hopefully we can get the audience we want.
And people are stopping you in the street because I'm
Yeah.
going
Yes,
to
most
describe you
certainly.
obviously because it's audio,
Yeah.
but forgive me, you're walking down the road in what the Daily Mail would love to call hoodies, and you have placards saying Riot the
Absolutely.
Musical.
And we have it on our back.
Yeah.
Oh, indeed, and
So-
good exclamation mark.
Yeah,
as well,
definitely.
to really drive it home.
I mean, we are getting definitely getting
Yeah.
noticed. There is certainly a buzz about it. I mean, like you say, we can only measure it once we've actually got the ball rolling. But I think there is certainly a buzz and a sort of preemptive feel.
Were you here last year for the Fringe? Just
No.
No,
tell you
no.
what was really interesting. I was here last year, and I come from London, and I work for a council, and obviously councils had to do quite a lot of emergency planning, and there was a fear that it was going to spread all over London. It only went to various pockets. As it happens, where I was, it didn't come. But I was there one day. I came up on the sleeper to Edinburgh that night. The next day I was here in Edinburgh. And Edinburgh, of course, it didn't come to Scotland at all.
Yeah.
It came to quite a lot of England.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
didn't come anywhere into Scotland. And there was a real sense, because obviously the Fringe is a bit of a bubble in a strange sense.
Yeah.
Anyway. But everyone was going around saying, gosh, what's happening to England? Which you don't often hear in Scotland, I have to say.
Yeah.
But there was an odd sense of detachment and yet curiosity. So I wonder if you'll be able to sort of plug into that as well.
Hopefully, yeah. I mean, it just depends on the audiences. I mean, it really depends on what they take away from it. And like we said, everyone's got their own individual experience. That's why it's drawing the audience that it is, because everyone knows someone.
But we also touch on every element that were touched. I mean, we mention Birmingham, Manchester, Bristol, Liverpool, and London because they were the main areas that were touched.
Points, as they say.
And we're sort of there to make people realise it wasn't just London.
No,
it was
absolutely.
everywhere. Croydon, which is in South London.
Southern London.
Well, sorry. And like Liverpool and
That's what I
Bristol,
think, yeah,
of
it
all
was-
places.
And where are you based, if you don't mind me saying?
We're in London as well.
Hertfordshire.
Actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're in London. Yeah.
Oh, London, I am going to.
Yeah,
South
different.
West
Yeah, he was southwest. So we're sort of northwest.
Northwest.
Oh, well, I'm west as it happens. But
Oh, lovely, okay, yeah.
Because it happened in Ealing down the road from me as well.
Oh, really? Oh, okay, yeah.
absolutely.
Well, that's the thing. I think one of the things we do actually reference is we do use the odd place name here and there. I think that's just to sort of give it some grounding, really. Give it just that sort of raw, that sort of feel to it. But we do reference the other towns as well.
And do you have a website?
There's a Twitter
There's a
page.
Twitter
You
page.
can follow us on
Oh,
Twitter,
very good.
# Riot the Musical, or one word.
Yeah, just write the musical.
No exclamation mark.
No exclamation mark.
You
Yeah.
can find us at Riot the Musical on Twitter. And visit the Space UK website if you want to book tickets.
Yeah, brilliant.
Splendid. Final question, and it's the same question, but you'll probably have a different answer. If I were to say, what's the thing you will take away from Riot the Musical yourself as people involved in the creativity of it? What would that be?
Wow.
And I love this question because everyone then goes,
Wow, yeah, I think for me, I think it was just nice to explore what has, potentially been seen by some as a taboo subject. I mean, it's obviously, it's been on everyone's lips for the past 12 months, but I mean, there are certain people who just won't talk about it, particularly those in authority, because I think perhaps there is that certain sense of fear among, particularly among politicians, and I think it's not so much they don't know what happened, I think it's they're not ready to sort of accept that it did, and they're not ready to accept why it happened.
it's
so
seen as an aberration rather than
of
an actual
course,
event.
of course, and I think it's just nice to finally be able to explore it and not just explore it, but in such detail as well, and present it too. I think it's certainly a rewarding experience, to say the least.
Well, personally for me, I wasn't here during the riots. I was actually away on tour, so it was all news to me when I got back, and then it sort of disappeared.
Where's my house gone?
Yeah, it sort of disappeared quite quickly from the news because people felt they couldn't speak about it. And I mean, exploring it, as Richard said, in a way that I didn't know anything about it. I learned new things, but also sending across to people that it wasn't just students as a whole. There were lots of individuals and different backstories. Some people were there who weren't students, who actually didn't believe in what the government were doing, and there were also students as well. Me being a student, I felt that it was important to say not all students were involved, but look at all the different types of classes, because they blame, everyone's like, oh, it's the lower class, it was this, the working class. But no, people of all classes, of all different shapes and sizes, were all there fighting for what they believed in, and people need to realise that.
I mean, for me, I guess the experience is more creative because it's been so exciting being able to work with such a raw script and working with characters who are very real and who are very grounded. So for me, the real thing I'll take away from this is purely the experience of being involved in the musical. And obviously the same as that looking at the subject of the rise is important as well. But for me, it's having the chance to be up in Edinburgh Fringe Festival, which is my first time here.
And it won't be your last.
And being involved in a musical that does have such a buzz about it and that is so raw and is so interesting.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope you draw the crowds in the nicest possible way. You
Yeah,
understand?
of course.
You know where to point them in our direction.
And I wish you great success.
Thank
you
you.
very
Thank you so
much.
much. Yeah.
Musical talk. Well, there we are. That was Riot the Musical. Now, ironically, My last interview today is about a show that sounded a riot in a completely different sense. In this case, joyous and bouncy. In fact, it was about a party. And the show was called Part A. Not as in party, which you know comes with an A and a Y on the end and a couple of exclamation marks at least by law, but it actually was Part A. As in, you might get a sequel Part B or Part C. Now, once again, this was a piece of new writing which I couldn't get to see in Edinburgh this year, but I'm pleased to say that David Kingsmill did, and he conducted a much more in-depth interview, with much greater knowledge, of course, having seen the show, with the people behind it, and you'll be hearing that in the next couple of weeks. So think of this interview as an appetiser. This will help set the scene in general terms, and next time, with David, you'll hear so much more about Part A. So think of this as a cliffhanger. Musical talk.
I'm Freya. I'm one of the writers and one of the directors of Part A, which is a brand new comedy musical.
I'm Jack Williams. I'm the other writer, kind of co-director. I always play guitar in the musical, and Freya plays piano.
Oh, I play piano in the musical as well. I forgot that part.
Well, one of you's bought your guitar, but the other one hasn't bought their piano. I can't help it.
We can't play the piano on the mile, sadly.
It's a little harder to bring a piano.
Now, let's talk about Part A. I should say that although it sounds like Part A with a Y on the end, it is indeed Part A. So if people are looking for it online, they can find, like, Plan A.
Yeah, it's Part Space A.
How did this musical come about?
Well, funnily enough, I was at the Fringe last year as part of an a cappella group, and I attended a party, but I was not drinking that night because I was travelling in the morning, I think, and so I saw this house party from kind of a fresh perspective. A sober, unusually sober for me. And I thought, I could actually do something with this. And I think it was that, paired with having been inspired by lots of shows at the Fringe anyway, that I was thinking maybe we could actually work with this and do something. And then I just mentioned it to Jack, and he's written loads of songs anyway, so we thought we'd put our heads together and see what happened. And
So how do you sort of dole out the work? Did you devise the book between you, devise the songs between you, or was it a bit more delineated?
Generally, I think a lot of writers generally split up music and lyrics, but I think we would generally take a song each, find a subject that we'd like to write about, and kind of take that away on our own for a little bit, and then we'd come back with a near-finished product, and then the other would kind of give any critiques and kind of add little bits.
Oh, you finesse each other's work?
Indeed.
We do, yeah.
Now, does that lead to a composite whole, would you say? Does it feel like an integrated score, or do you think people who know you well will be able to come in and say, that's one person's song and that's the other's?
Well, funnily enough, some people have come in and said, that bit was so you, when actually it's been him. So I guess it is quite a composite whole. Yeah, but I forget which bits are mine and which bits are his.
That answers that question, though, if I may say. So obviously, now, have you worked together before?
A little bit. I used to play in a band back home, mainly kind of singer-songwriter, kind of pop rock kind of stuff. And Freya would, from time to time, kind of add little bits to my songs and suggest
vocals and piano sometimes.
Suggest harmonies and kind of musical.
So you've almost developed your working relationship in the past anyway. So that finessing thing going on.
Yeah, certainly never something to the same extent, but a little bit from the past. Yeah.
Now, give us, if you can, just a brief resume of the plot.
Okay, well, it doesn't really have a linear narrative as such because it's a song cycle, so it's just a collection of more or less self-contained songs. Each one's about quite an awkward social situation occurring at a house party, and so as we go along, the cast is sort of playing different roles within it, and it's meant to be funny as well.
Hopefully, and you'll see certain characters kind of reprise their roles in later songs. For example, we have one song where a man is talking about philosophy to his friend who's clearly not interested at all, saying this isn't conversation of a party and such. And at that point in the musical, you're not really meant to warm towards this character, but then later you get it from their perspective and kind of the reason he talks about such things.
So it folds back in on itself in certain ways. Yeah, it does. Perspectives.
It does. We wanted to add a bit of depth to it in that way because song cycles, sometimes people aren't, I don't think they leave feeling like completely satisfied with the lack of narrative. So yeah, characters do crop up again and weave in and out a little bit, but it's not a story as such.
I like the idea, though, but obviously, as you're right, because the problem is if you couldn't tell the story of a party anyway, could you? Because it is lots of disparate things happening in a room, sometimes fueled by alcohol, but occasionally fueled by lust. So that's also convenient. So how have the audiences been taking it?
Really well, actually. We've done 4 performances now, and we've sold out every night. Lots of laughter. It's funny experiencing different audiences because
Yes.
last night, for example, I think the audience still enjoyed it just as much, but they were kind of more reserved, whereas in the previous nights we've had like big, hefty laughter.
In the same sense, they found other things very funny that other audiences didn't.
It's
There's a real
strange
mix.
what different
what appeals to
audiences
people.
pick up on, isn't it?
Well, particularly in intimate theatre, though, don't you think that the audience is always the unknown quantity that they are? But because they're so much part of the creative effort, even on stage. If your audience is dead, it's difficult.
Yeah,
and if they're
it
really
impacts.
getting it, and then if they're bizarre, because you can get bizarre audiences, which, as you say, they find absolutely wayward things.
Yeah, we had
positively.
that last night actually.
Well, we don't have their names and addresses, so I'm not. So no name, but no background. How would you describe? Well, you said comedy, so can you describe the tone of the piece, and indeed also your style of music? I say that because you're both the creators behind the songs.
Stylistically, I mean, the music in it's kind of lots of different styles. We've got, I guess, as a whole, you could call it pop rock.
Possibly. I think we've got some very upbeat kind of rocky numbers, but we dip into other things like we've got a funk number, we've got kind of a Latin number, we've got very slow kind of acoustic-y songs, and then more kind of guitar-driven melodies as well.
But these aren't pastiches. They are songs of those genre. They just happen to be appropriate for you're writing for the mood of the piece, I guess, in each case.
Very much so. I think we took a lot of influence from kind of the Bee Gees in one of our funk numbers, kind of putting their kind of esque harmonies.
Well, it means you'll have a tremendously long career, but you'll die horribly within a short space. You only want to take that so far, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, just the one number is enough, I think, for those kind of harmonies.
Oh, really? Is that because harmonies are difficult to get right when you're writing, or to get the actors to do night after night?
Well, for the Bee Gees one, it's kind of like the effect we want as well. It's kind of an unpleasant sound, so it's a bit like a ha rather than like an ah. But we have quite a lot of harmonies throughout. We've got a male trio called Beer Goggles, and that's very much like a swing.
Quite barbershop-esque, maybe kind of Andrew Sisters, Papini Sisters.
A male version. And we've also got a female trio number. That's in close harmony. We've also just got little bits of close harmony just cropping up in random places.
I think when you've got a cast of 6 who can sing close harmony in that way, it's a shame not to utilise them, especially kind of final notes at the end or kind of opening the number as well.
Yeah.
They like to do it with a bang.
And like as I mentioned a little bit before, I was in an a cappella group, so I'm kind of just a harmony junkie anyway. I will just get in as many harmonies as possible, and then we can cut it down if we need
There's a
to.
limit, no less is more, but...
There comes a point where there's no room for any more, isn't there?
Yeah.
Now, here's a question. You're both performing as instrumentalists in
Yeah.
the piece as well. What control does that give you? Do you find that actually gives, you can keep your beaded eye on your cast to make sure that they're doing what you want? Or if it goes wayward, is it easy? Is it better to be on the shop floor with them, as it were, or not?
It's definitely tricky. I guess the advantage of it is that because we know it so well, the slightest sort of error we pick up on straight away, and we can rectify it probably sooner than someone who didn't know the music. In the same way, it's a shame. Where I'm sat on the stage, I can watch the cast from behind, but it's a shame not to be sat in the audience.
Isn't it?
It's a view, yeah. It could be worse, but yeah, it's a shame not to see it as the audience sees it, especially once you've directed it as well.
But it's nice for kind of we know the musical cues so well because we wrote them, so it's quite easy to go off them and see them. The band is based just on the side of the stage, just behind the cast, so they're in full view of the audience as well.
The audience can see us, so they get to.
It gives you a certain sensitivity as well, though, if you're that close and you're the composer, so you can react to what's going on.
Yeah, and actually, one good comment that we had was that the band.
One of many, I'm sure.
One of many was that the band were quite responsive to like dynamics and things.
Oh,
so, I mean, with some numbers, it is easy for us to get a bit excited. In the numbers we prefer, we tend to sometimes we play it a bit heavily. But I think we do bring it down on the gentler numbers, and it's a good sort of response thing going on, I hope.
With regards to resolving mistakes, we haven't had any major cock-ups yet, but
excellent.
It's I think if one were to arise, hopefully we'll be able to kind of take control of the situation, slow down a song to give them more time or things like that.
And good actors should as well, shouldn't they?
Yeah, exactly. And
they know how to escape.
well, one of the girls sort of changed her lyrics in the last song last night, and obviously I wasn't even playing in that bit, so I was just happily watching, and then I was like, those aren't the words, what's she doing? And I was just like, just carry it on, and she did.
She covered it so well, no one else would have.
Nobody would have had a clue that wasn't just like what we'd written. I mean, it was a bit strange what she said, but you just realise that the audience are kind of oblivious to it unless it's obvious. Yes,
really
of course.
obvious.
Yeah.
Unless someone drops a clanger,
Yeah.
most people are prepared to go with what they see. To be honest. Absolutely.
Very true.
Now, tell me, where are you from? Are you from a university group? Are
We-
you a theatrical group, a pop group, a music group? You tell me, frankly.
We're originally from Cardiff, so we knew each other from school. Then we both went our separate ways for university, and we finished university and came back home. We both finished last year in the summer, and then I came to Fringe with the a cappella group, and that's where the idea was hatched. And so we kind of had that as our focal point for the year onwards.
Yeah.
But the cast themselves are all students
There's a
from
real
different
mix as well.
places.
We got students from Oxford, Bristol, and two of the guys are from Royal Welsh College in
right.
Cardiff, so kind of local talent as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, but you've got the cream of Britain's intellectual capability singing with you. Now, tell me, how can people see this show, and do you have a website?
We do. People can see this show every night from now until the 25th of August, except for the 19th, which is a Sunday. They can see it at Surgeons Hall at the Spaces UK, and it's on at 10 to 9 every evening, which is a great time. You can have a drink before
And
and after. Want you to tell them anything else?
Our website is www.part-a-musical.co.uk, and you can also find us on the Ed Fringe website, and there's some clips from the show on there as well.
Fabulous.
And we have a Twitter, which is Part A Musical, all one word. And we're on Facebook.
So we're all over the
We're
internet.
everywhere.
Fully stamped.
You can't avoid us.
Now, are you likely to work together again?
Yeah.
Is this the beginning of a wonderful relationship?
I really
as they
hope
say
so.
in Casablanca.
We've had a really positive reaction so far, and it feels really great to have that kind of response for your work. So I think that's really just want to continue a
We
similar
want to
thing.
do this for as long as we can. So as long as we can put up with each other, we'll do it.
You're not Gilbert and Sullivan, though, so you should be all right. Now, I have to say this, I look forward to seeing you both on the Mile next year, then, with
thank you.
Part B.
I can feel that one coming.
Thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure talking to you, and I
too.
wish you every success.
Well, thank you very much.
Musical talk. There we are. That was my short interview with the people behind Part A. And as I say, do tune in again in the next few weeks, because David Kingsmill will be telling you a lot more about that show and many others, including more shows which I didn't get to see, which he did. Yes, so although this is my last Edinburgh Fringe show, there's still plenty of meat on the bone left, and I'm going to be leaving it to David to guide you through the remnants of the carcass. What a lovely image. Well, that's it for me for the time being. Thank you so much for joining me for the last 5 weeks, talking about my favourite 3 weeks of the year, the period of the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. I was only up there for 9 days, and I'm already pining for August 2013, when I can go again. And perhaps I'll see you there, because I do hope that these episodes get across that excitement, the buzz, the atmosphere, and most of all the opportunity to see lots of new and old shows. There is no better place for catching up with musical theatre than the Edinburgh Fringe. But, as I said, tune in for the next few weeks when David Kingsmill will be giving you his take on that festival, and of course he was a performer there as well, so he has a slightly different take, and it's always interesting to hear what he has to say. We're going to finish now, though, with that promised last song from Armada, the musical. Until you hear from me again, I hope you have a jolly time, and for now, let me say goodbye. Goodbye.
Sent on a mission of God, sailed on a crusade of justice, men, sailors, boys, dukes, priests and grandees.
This episode of Musical Talk, presented and edited by Thos. Copyright Musical Talk 2012, except for the music, which is copyrighted to Rob Winlow. And now for some musical outtalks which didn't get away, but nor did they go the way that was expected.
Now, but I'm just going to ask you for a level first of all. Is that okay?
Yep, that's fine. Hi, I'm Finn here at the Edinburgh Festival Fringe.
Lovely. What I'm going to do, if that's okay, is it says what it does on the tin, as it were. We are just going to talk about musical, if that's okay. And our conversation will go wherever it goes. And if you say anything halfway through you wish you hadn't said, or you realise you've been rude to your cast members or whatever, just say, "Can we take that out?" And it will go out.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm not here to create problems.
Brilliant.
I'm actually going to start because everything's linked in the studio link. So I'm going to ask you first of all to say your name and the show and your involvement in it, and we'll sort of take it from there, if I may. Does it have a website for anyone who's...
Yes, the website is...
I cut out the gaps. Everyone sounds marvellous, don't worry. Fluency is all.
The website is...
Finn, I wish you every success.
Thank you very much.
This won't be the last time we speak to each other. Please
I hope so, definitely.
Do let me know when you're in London.
I will do.
Seriously,
Keep in touch.
We'll have a chat as your career develops. And what's the website so people can chase up for next year?
The LGMC website is www.lgmc.org, I think. Oh, I can't remember.
Don't worry, I'll find out and add it. I'll do it in the linking.
just cut that bit out and add it in. Yeah.
Where are we? We're at 20:30, so it's another 20 minutes. I'm happy with that.
Yeah,
we can come back to that as well. Or is there anything else you want to say about that?
No. Sort of felt like I was.
No, that's fine.
Fumbling a bit.
But it was important to get it across.
Yes. Yeah.
So I value your view on that.
Interesting. I did. Ask me again one more time.
Well, the question was because it's a pastiche 20
Sorry,
score.
yes. Yeah. Sorry. I started thinking about the open air theatre and then I was thinking, I haven't seen Ragtime yet, but then my mind ran away.
Is there anything else you want to say? Because we're sort of coming to the end. We've done half an hour, you know.
Wow.
I really enjoyed it, but shall I sort of wrap it up?
Yeah.
It's getting on for 10 to, so.
Yeah.
I've got a little level here in case you're wondering why I'm not catching your eye. It's not shame on my part. Splendid, thank you very much. If you say anything halfway through the interview that you wish you hadn't said, i.e. you've libelled your cast members or anything like that, just say, take that out, because we're not an expose. Splendid. Well, you actually told me who you are, so that's all very helpful.
The interesting thing is that there's obviously, the sort of...
I might ask you to start that again. Pay no attention. I'm not going to answer that. I'm going to put that in a more distant pocket.
Of course, and I think that's another sort of beauty of it is it's not really something you can just sort of sit there.
See, violence in action.
It's happening right away. It's fun.
If this is what I should do video. I'm sorry.
It's not necessarily something you can just sort of...
Now that's that. Is everything all right for you there? Nothing you want to take out?
Just me hitting Richard over the head completely by accident.
I don't know how it'll come across, but I'll probably cut that and take it to the beginning of the next sentence. If that's all right.
We all said some...
You got the message. You got the message. I mean, powerful and punchy is really, that seems to be
absolutely
lovely. I'm going to turn it off so you start. We are now recording, by the way, but obviously I edit. The way I generally start is ask people to give me their name and the show. Very important to mention that, and your involvement in the show. And then towards the end, I'll also ask people how they can see it, which is obviously the deal. We all understand each other. Splendid.
Yeah, sounds good.
Splendid. I'm going to ask you to get a little bit closer, I'm afraid, just because there's quite a lot of ambient as you will together. Splendid height differential, I might name, show, and context.
Okay, we do. People can see this show every night from now until the 25th of August, except for the 19th, which is a Sunday. They can see it at Surgeons Hall at the Spaces UK, and it's on at 10 to 9 every evening, which is a great time. You can have a drink before and after. Want you to tell them anything else?
And now for some musical outtalks which didn't get away, but nor did they go the way that...
Is that all right?
Yeah, fantastic.
That was almost precisely 15 minutes, so that's pretty much bite-sized.
Thank you so much for taking...
And I think that's probably about right, if you're happy with that. Is there anything in there you need in or out?
No, I don't think so. I don't think I've incriminated anyone in any way.
Or yourself, more importantly. Now, that was lovely. Thank you very much. Now, was that all right for you both?
Perfect.
Just as the wind picks up, that is about right, actually. So I'll turn it off.
That was fun.